Seattle Seahawks. Another, like this time, long-term head coach let go. Pete Carroll, the incredible regime, the incredible tenure that he had with the Seahawks, gone. We bring in a new head coach, this time from Baltimore, Mike MacDonald. What do we expect from the Seahawks?
I would expect, there's been a lot of talk in the NFC about the NFC North and Caleb Williams, and then you go out east and Jaden Daniels, and the Rams are still good, and the Cardinals are coming with Kyler and Marvin Harrison. But Seattle's kind of this forgotten team in the NFC that should still be in playoff contention, right? They've gone 9-8 the last 2 years, made the playoffs in 22, just missed it last year. A lot of problems in the trenches, but I think what Mike MacDonald is going to want to bring is just a more physical football team to the field. Out on the perimeter, Seattle's really, really good. Obviously, Geno Smith has had a resurgence in his career. They're really good at receiver. They're really good in the secondary. They got a good set of backs, right? But what needs to be improved here is in the trenches and their ability to run and stop the run, right? And you look down the stretch last year, those are the two things that let them down, right? They were 25th in the second half of the year in yards per carry, and they were dead last in yards per carry allowed in that stretch. And I think Mike MacDonald is going to want to fix this front seven. And the offensive line is going to be a harder task. We'll get there. But I think fixing their run defense is going to be huge. And obviously you lose Bobby Wagner, who's like the franchise stalwart. He was the only one carrying their run defense. They just needed more depth. They needed to get more well-rounded. So you let Wagner walk. And I think with MacDonald, for me, I focus on linebackers for him, because you look at the Ravens with Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen. The second they got together, they were like the best pair of linebackers in football. So for a year and a half. Now he's trying to build that out with the same thing. A guy with a lot of potential is Terrell Dodson, who they're bringing in from Buffalo, who was the highest graded linebacker in football last year. And he was essentially in a huge pressure spot, replacing Matt Milano, who tore his ACL and was done for the year very, very early and played really well. And then he brought in Jerome Baker from Miami, I believe, as well. This is a guy who wants to come in here. Look, he's been with the Harbaughs for a long time. They play a physical brand of football. That's what he's going to want on both sides of the ball, and that's what Seattle needs, and that's what I expect.
Yeah, I think the Seattle, actually, this is a really good roster with one potential Achilles heel, and it's that offensive line, right? Now, at PFF's offensive line rankings, they came in 31st out of 32 teams in the NFL, so it's a big concern. And, okay, in the draft, everyone was predicting them to take an interior offensive lineman, with their first-round pick. So acute was that need. And instead, they're like, no, we don't like taking those guys high. We don't think it's worth it. They had the patience. They waited it out. And they got a guy like Christian Haynes, great value pick, potentially a great pick up for them just to improve that group. But you look at the starting five, what it's going to be. Charles Cross, I think, has become a good left tackle already, and who knows how much better he can get. One spot is in good shape, and it is the most valuable spot still, left tackle. So, cool, that's fine. Laken Tomlinson, former first-round pick, but has basically only been good in Shanahan offenses, right? That witchcraft that the Shanahan system is able to produce for offensive linemen and protecting them, it works great. It worked on Laken Tomlinson, but any other system, he's been a below-average offensive lineman. Center, whether it's Oluwatimi, whether it's Nick Harris, center looks like a below-average starter right now. Right guard, they basically need Christian Haynes to come in and be a starter right away and be good. Otherwise, that's a problem spot. And then right tackle, Abraham Lucas, the third-round pick in the same year as Charles Cross, looked like a really good player right out of the gate, but I don't think has gotten better. In fact, if anything, I think it's slid backwards a little bit. So he might be an average or below average starter as well. And maybe you can, offset that or mitigate that with George Fant as a backup. But potentially that's at least 3 spots, maybe 4 out of your 5 offensive line positions are in trouble. So, Geno Smith throwing to those great receivers, Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet in the backfield, everything other than those offensive linemen look great. But that can undermine the whole thing. Everything gets harder if that group is the 31st best team in the NFL. That's my concern for the Seahawks. I think the defense is in good shape. I think everything other than the offensive line on the offensive side is in good shape. But that whole unit could undermine everything.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's hard not to agree with that. The two big things that they need, Abraham Lucas dealt with a lot of injuries last year. He basically never played 100%. So I think there is a bounce back possibility there for Lucas at right tackle. And I'm with you. I would start Christian Haynes right away. I think athletically he's good enough to start in the NFL right away. Not the strongest dude in the world, but I think they're going to run a good amount of that zone scheme in this offense under Ryan Grubb. And Haynes is just a really, really good fit for that. And he's an awesome pass protector, too. I know people are going to say, well, he came from UConn. But when they played even Power 5 teams, Christian Haynes held up really well in pass protection. I would start him right away at right guard. And Lucas's health, I think, is the biggest X factor. Because if those two things hit and you maybe have two soft spots on your offensive line, there's a lot of teams with two soft spots on their offensive line. Honestly, the Chiefs just won a Super Bowl with two soft spots up front. So, two is manageable, four is obviously not. Those two guys on the right side are going to be a huge key, and the pass protection is going to be a massive key because I love Geno Smith's fit with Ryan Grubb as the offensive coordinator, and Grubb only has to go 6 miles down the road from Husky Stadium down to Lumen Field now in Seattle. Washington the last 2 years, they threw the deep ball more and better than anybody in the country, and obviously if you have Michael Penix and that loaded group of receivers, you're going to do it, but there's a similar dynamic here. And over the last 2 years, Geno's been the highest graded deep thrower in the NFL. It's really the thing that's made their offense go. A perfect 99.9 passing grade on 20-plus yard targets, 58 big-time throws, I believe is second behind Josh Allen. This is a team that wants to get vertical. Obviously, with Metcalf, I think Smith and Jigba, I don't think they used him completely right last year. I think he can get more vertical than you think. Tyler Lockett working underneath all of that. The run game should be good, at least for the backs. I mean, if they can block enough up front, these are two really good backs they have. But I think Ryan Grubb and Geno Smith, if they can lock down that pass protection up front, it's the one key to all of it is you do need time, right? And obviously Michael Penix at Washington had time. He had arguably the best pass protection unit in the country. The Seahawks don't have that. So how do we manage around that and still create those big plays? Because we have all the skilled players to do it.
Yeah, I think the Seahawks, it's a really tough division. So, they're different to some other teams where you're sort of saying, yeah, they're in the playoff hunt. They're in contention. They could. I mean, this is a good team. I expect them to be better than they were a year ago. I expect them to be in the mix for the playoffs, but that's a really tough ask within that division where we expect the 49ers to be probably the best team in the NFC. The Rams should be good. Even the Cardinals should be significantly better than they were a year ago. So, I think their range of outcomes in terms of actual win-loss record is pretty broad just because of how good that division is. But I do expect the Seahawks to be legit and a problem this year. And then it's just a case of does that offensive line undermine the whole thing or does it hold up?